everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Heidi from My Reading Life, and I'm here today to film a Friday Reads. I know, I haven't done one of these in ages, but I had the time and I wanted to check in because I haven't really talked about what I've been reading in February yet, and I've had a lot of success so far in February, especially for Black History Month. So let's get right into it. The first book that I finished in February, because this is not going to be just what I've read over the last week, it's going to be since February 1, since I haven't talked about any of these books yet on my channel. The first thing I completed was this book that I got from the library. This is a piece of graphic nonfiction. It's called Brazen, Rebel Ladies Who Rock the World by Penelope Bagieu, maybe? And this is translated, I think, from French originally. And I don't know who the translator is. I should have looked that up. And I think it doesn't say in the beginning. I think it says in the end. Yes. English translation by Montana Kane. And so I had heard about this book on Doris and Britta's channels, I believe, and I thought it sounded interesting. So when I saw this at my library, I figured I'd pick it up and take a look at it, and it's just delightful. So this goes through a bunch of different women who are not famous, or they are famous, but maybe you've never heard of them before. And like, for example, the very first one is Clementine Delay. This is a bearded lady, and so you get like this graphic depiction of information about her life, and it goes probably 4 or 5 pages, and then to separate that section from the next section, you get a full 2-page color spread of that person's life. And these women were fascinating. Some of my favorite ones, Nellie Bly is in here. She's the young lady who was a journalist in the early 1900s and got herself committed to an insane asylum so she could report on what the conditions were like inside the asylum. There's a section in here about the lady who played the Wicked Witch of the West in the Wizard of Oz movie. And these women were fascinating. And many of them, in fact, most of them were women I had not heard of before. And I just want to read full books about each and every one of them. So I think this is a really excellent graphic nonfiction, and I would highly recommend it to anyone, particularly if you're interested in women's history that maybe isn't very often covered in the mainstream. So that was a big success. I then picked up this graphic, this is the due date sticker. I got this through interlibrary loan from my library. This is volume 1 of Giant Days. And the creators for this series, this is a series of comics that the pages don't want to turn on. So it's created and written by John Allison, illustrated by Lissa Treiman, something like that. Anyway, this is a slice of life comic about 3 young ladies who are just starting university for the first time in Great Britain, and it's delightful. It's delightful. In this first volume, they're dealing with like moving into the dorms, finding out, about each other, so establishing their friendship, having issues with boys, having their first run-in with influenza away from home. It's just really delightful. And I have the other 2 volumes here at home to read as well, which I will be doing. So I first heard about this particular graphic novel series on BookTube, and I would never have heard of it probably otherwise, and I'm so glad I did because I found it really delightful. I then finished an audiobook, and then I talked about a little bit in my last vlog, and that was Network Effect by Martha Wells. It's book 4 in the Murderbot, book 4 or book 5. I can't remember, number 5 in the Murderbot series. So this is a science fiction series that is about our main character Murderbot, who is, just as you would think by the name, is a sort of partially a human construct with AI that is used for security purposes, and we follow Murderbot on their adventures, and as they are developing sort of relationships with other beings and what those relationships look like, and their rollicky, rompy, good fun, adventurous, with a main character who doesn't like to have feelings, but is having feelings and doesn't know what to do with them. I love the Murderbot series. So the first 4.5 installments, the first 4 installments are novellas. The 4.5 is a short story, and then number 5 is the first full-length novel in the series. And I thought it was awesome on audiobook. It was really good fun, and I'm really glad to be reading the Murderbot series. If you're looking for a way into science fiction and you sort of like a book that maybe deals a little bit more with personal relationships, I think Murderbot is a really fun time to have. It is plot driven, but it is also says quite a lot about human relationships, I think. Then I read a book for the BookTube Prize. I am judging Group D, I think it is, for nonfiction for the BookTube Prize this round. So I read a book for that, which I'm not going to talk about right now. And then I read this graphic novel. This is Heartstopper Volume 4 by Oseman. And this is just a really great story about our 2 main characters, Nick and Charlie, who have, through the course of these 4 books, been developing their relationship, their romantic relationship. First a friendship, and then led to romance. And in this volume, they're boyfriends, and they're having to deal with other things outside of just their relationship with each other. Heartwarming. This volume also made me cry. Several of these volumes have made me cry. This is a delightful, heartwarming story about 2 teens finding love and acceptance with each other and with other folks outside of just their relationship with each other, learning what it's like to be with somebody, but to realize that you can't be everything for that person. This book also deals with mental health issues, particularly anorexia and other self-harm type issues. So just be aware of that if you are interested in reading this series. The next book that I finished since the start of February is a book that I just finished yesterday, and that is Beloved by Toni Morrison. This is a reread for me. I first read it in college, so I really do not remember anything about it other than there's a ghost involved. I buddy read this with Britta. We read it for Black History Month, and I really, really love this novel. It is such a wonderful, first of all, Toni Morrison obviously can write. Her prose is not something that I normally notice, and I can see that the lights are glaring off this shiny cover, so I apologize for that if I can find a way to hold it so it doesn't glare at you. Toni Morrison can write. Obviously, she's well known to be one of the top writers from America from the 20th century, and yeah, definitely, like, her prose is just gorgeous in this novel. So in this novel, we're following our main character, Setha, who is a formerly enslaved person. She is living with her mother-in-law and her daughter, Denver, and through the course of the story, we learn about how they all got there, and I don't want to give away anything about this, but their house is haunted, and you know that right from the beginning, and you find out who is haunting the house and why throughout the course of the story. But the thing that I didn't like about the story is actually the magical realism elements. I'm not a fan of magical realism, and there were certain aspects of the story that I found to be problematic in terms of that. There are a couple sections towards the end of the book that I did not care for how they were written. But other than that, I think everything else does really work for me about this novel. I think because the exploration of themes of motherhood and what it meant to be a mother, and to also be a slave, to be enslaved, to be the property of someone else, and to have no control over your own children, to the point you didn't even have control over your breast milk, is just such a powerful, powerful theme that is explored throughout this book. I think this book also does a wonderful job of pulling in aspects of what slavery did to people, what being enslaved did to people in terms of generational trauma, of what it, exploring themes of what it was like to have experienced abuse of all kinds, and then have to live with that for the rest of your life, and how do you make a life after that? I will say this book is not an easy read. The content is really difficult. There is every kind of trigger warning imaginable for things that occur during the course of this book. And it's also not, it's not easy because Toni Morrison throws you into the story without any signpost to let you know sort of where you are in geographical terms, where you are in time and space, or in time. So there's geography, time, and all the things that normally allow you to know where you are in the story. In the beginning, that is confused, and it's done that way on purpose. And so while it's difficult maybe to get in and sort of place yourself in the story and sort of get yourself fixed enough in the story so you sort of know what's going on and who's speaking at any given time, stick with it because it all becomes clear. And I think that is done purposefully by the author, and it's done with really good effect and really allows you to see what it must have been like to be a person who had no control over where you were going to end up from day to day, and how it felt to just constantly live a life that was in upheaval and to never know safety and security. And you sort of feel that as the reader. You feel that topsy-turviness, that never knowing if the ground's going to shift under your feet, that never feeling secure in your knowledge of where you are in the world. I thought that was done to really excellent effect. I also think this book does a really good job of depicting people honestly. So all of the characters are both good and bad. They're human characters. They experience horrible things. They do horrible things. And that just feels real. It feels real. These are not morally good or morally bad, good and evil, all that stuff. It's all mixed in together. And that makes it just ever so much more real. And so, yeah, I'm probably not making any sense at all. I hope that you will disregard any confusion that I might have given you about this book and go try it for yourself, because I think it is a masterpiece. And while it's not an unqualified 5-star read for me, because there were aspects, as I said, that I didn't fully embrace and fully love. I think that I'm going to think about this book for a really, really long time. And so it is a book that is very deserving of everybody's attention and for everybody to read it. It's just a classic. That's all there is to it. And then the last book that I've finished so far this month is another audiobook, and it's a middle grade called Ghost by Jason Reynolds. It's the first book in a series of book about called the Track series, I think. And it's all about this particular individual book. Ghost is about a young boy named Ghost who is from the projects, and he lives with his mom, and he's having a difficult time in school, and his mom has to work really hard, and so he's left on his own a lot in between school and when his mom gets home from work. And one afternoon, he happens upon a practice for a track team, and he happens to be really good at running, and he gets involved with this track team. So yeah, it was really good. I did not love the audiobook narrator that read the story. So I think that I will check out the next installments in the series in physical hard copy or ebook copy, because I think that the narrator bothered me enough that it detracted from my enjoyment, because the story was really, really good and really heartwarming. And I love a good heartwarming sports story. So if that's something that you like as well, I would recommend Ghost by Jason Reynolds. I am working on 2 books right now at the moment. The first is How the Word is Passed by Clint Smith, A Reckoning with the History of Slavery Across America. This book is brilliant. I only have about 50 pages left to read in this, so I'm planning on either finishing it tonight or tomorrow. I am tabbing the heck out of it. I am underlining. I am writing in the margins. It is so good. And it was wonderful to read this in tandem with reading Beloved, because this book helped me to understand many issues that Morrison was writing about in her novel. And I think that if you wanted to pair fiction and nonfiction reading experience for Black History Month, these two things right here would be excellent combination. I certainly got a lot out of reading these together at the same time, but this book is brilliant. And I believe it's on the BookTube Prize long list. It's not in my category, but it is in the running right now. The other book that I'm reading currently is The Barbizon, The Hotel That Set Women Free by Paulina Bren. This nonfiction I'm buddy reading with Britta and Kim from Middle of the Bookmark. And this is all about the famous Barbizon Hotel in New York City, which was a residential hotel for women, especially in the mid-century, like from the 30s through the 70s. And many, many famous women stayed there and worked from there, and also just regular women stayed there and worked from there. Sylvia Plath stayed in this hotel when she was interning for Mademoiselle magazine. Mademoiselle had a strong relationship with the Barbizon. Their interns always stayed there. The Gibbs secretarial program, they had a whole floor devoted for their employees to live there. And there was a modeling agency that also had a relationship with this. Their models would stay there. So this is really the story of not only the hotel, but also the story of women sort of gaining independence in the mid-20th century, and what that was like, and what things they encountered, what the culture was like around that in the mid-20th century. And the book does also acknowledge that this was an experience of white middle-class women, that the Barbizon, I think, only had very few Black women that were allowed to stay there. And so this is, you know, something that was available only for a certain group of people. And so the book does examine that. It talks about that as well. So, you know, not to say this book doesn't ignore the problems that were existing at the time around that sort of exclusionary opportunity that was available for white women only. But it's fascinating. So I also will probably be picking up another BookTube Prize book this weekend, but I'm not for sure which one. So that is what I have recently finished and what I'm currently reading. I hope you're all finding some good books to read, and I will talk to you later.